You look like a man who knows how to keep faith.
The choir's voices rose like thunder under the stained glass windows when the gunshot cracked through the hymn. Screams shattered the sanctuary as Detective Langston Price hit the floor, his FBI wire sizzling against his chest. And above it all, the pastor's booming voice cried, "Nobody leaves until we find the Judas among us." Detective Langston Price, a 38-year-old FBI agent from Atlanta, is sent undercover into a historic black church in Macon, Georgia. On the surface, the church is a pillar of the community, led by the magnetic pastor Elijah Ward. Beneath the gospel and Sunday hats, the FBI suspects a multi-million-dollar laundering scheme tied to drug cartels. Langston, raised Baptist and struggling with his own estrangement from faith, takes the assignment reluctantly. But as he's drawn into the congregation's world, he discovers that the pastor isn't just laundering money, he's connected to Langston's own past in ways that could destroy them both. Each chapter peels back secrets of loyalty, sin, and survival, culminating in a shocking betrayal inside the pulpit. Quick heads up before we jump in. If you're into real stories, strange disappearances, and the kind of truths people try to bury, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell so you don't miss what comes next. All right, let's get into it. The bus ride into Macon was long, hot, and quiet, the kind of silence that forces you to sit with your choices. Langston kept his hands folded in his lap, the creased leather Bible resting there like it belonged to him. Truth was, he hadn't opened one in 15 years. But undercover work required more than a badge and a gun. It required acting, and sometimes acting meant becoming. The agent beside him, a young white rookie from the bureau, gave him one last reminder before he stepped off. "Remember, Price, you're Marcus Green now, fresh out of Atlanta. Contractor by trade, saved by grace. Keep it clean, keep it simple. Don't get too deep." Langston smirked, even as sweat trickled down the back of his neck. "You saying that because you care, or because you think I'm about to start speaking in tongues? Just don't forget why you're there. Pastor Ward's our target. You charm him, you get close, you find the pipeline. That's it." Langston nodded, though his stomach churned. He'd done undercover gigs before drug rings, gun runners, even a sex trafficking sting in Miami. But this was different. This was a church. His grandmother would have called it holy ground. And if she knew he was walking into God's house wearing a wire, she'd roll in her grave. The bus hissed to a stop. Langston grabbed his duffel, stepped onto the cracked asphalt, and inhaled the heavy Georgia air. The church wasn't hard to spot. Tall white steeple stabbing the sky, brick walls glowing orange in the evening sun. New Zion Baptist, Est, 1894, the kind of church that had seen more history than most schools. As he walked up the steps, voices floated through the open doors, rich, layered harmonies that sent a shiver down his spine. Choir practice. His grandmother's voice flickered in his memory, soft and strong, singing the same hymns in a kitchen full of cornbread and collard greens. He shook it off. He wasn't here for nostalgia. He was here to hunt. Inside, the sanctuary smelled like old wood and lemon oil. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, splashing colors across polished pews. And there he was, Pastor Elijah Ward, tall, commanding, suit sharp enough to cut glass. His smile was warm, but his eyes were deep water, the kind that could drown you if you weren't careful. "Brother," the pastor boomed, striding over like he'd known Langston all his life. "Welcome to New Zion. You new in town?" Langston forced a smile, lowering his voice into the humble drawl he'd practiced. "Yes, sir. Name's Marcus. Just moved down from Atlanta, looking for a church home." The pastor's hand swallowed his in a firm grip. "Well, you just found one. Here at New Zion, we take care of our own." Langston nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle like a stone in his gut. As the choir swelled behind them, Pastor Ward leaned in, voice dropping low, just for Langston's ears. "You look like a man who knows how to keep faith. And secrets." Langston froze for half a second. Then he smiled back. "Yes, sir," he said smoothly. "Always." But inside, every instinct screamed.
Visitors, please stand and tell us who you are. Don't rush off. Family stays close, you hear? And Marcus, sometimes what you give determines what you get.
He already knows I'm lying. Sunday morning came wrapped in heat. Georgia heat, the kind that clings to your clothes and seeps into your bones. Langston stood across the street from New Zion, suit pressed, tie knotted tight, and a leather-bound Bible tucked under his arm. The street buzzed with life. Shiny Cadillacs and dusty pickups pulling up, women in wide-brimmed hats stepping out like royalty, men in sharp suits clapping hands and laughing loud. Kids darted between legs in ruffled socks and patent leather shoes. He crossed over, merging into the tide of believers, his smile warm and easy. On the outside, he was just another man looking for salvation. Inside, every sense was dialed up, scanning for anomalies, the kind that didn't fit Sunday worship, but fit federal indictments. The sanctuary was alive, fans waving, organ humming low, voices lifting in praise. Langston slid into a pew near the middle, back straight, eyes open. From here, he could see everything: the ushers at the doors, the deacons lining the front rows, and at the center, Pastor Elijah Ward. The man looked even more magnetic in full light. His robe flowed black and gold. His voice rolled like thunder wrapped in silk. Every word landed like a commandment carved in stone. And the congregation drank it in, heads nodding, hands raised, amens punctuating the air. Langston took notes in his mind. 2 ushers never stopped moving, always scanning. Security or paranoia? The offering table is huge cash heavy? Maybe the rumors about the building fund aren't rumors at all. A deacon whispers to the pastor during prayer, slips something into his hand. Envelope, thick. The choir swelled into, "How great thou art," and Langston felt a flicker in his chest he didn't want to acknowledge. It was easier when he hated the people he had to take down. This felt too much like home. "Visitors, please stand and tell us who you are." The voice came from the pulpit. The spotlight burned hotter than the Georgia sun. Langston rose slow, smile humble. "Morning, saints." Name's Marcus Green. Just moved here from Atlanta. Looking for a church family. "Amen," the crowd roared back, clapping like they'd known him all their lives. Pastor Ward's eyes locked on his. That deep water gaze again, pulling him under. "Well, Brother Marcus," he said, voice rich as honey, "you just might have found it." The service rolled on, shouts, stomps, a sermon that danced between scripture and street wisdom. But Langston's focus sharpened when the offering came. 2 wooden baskets passed hand to hand, filling fast with cash. No checks, no cards, just stacks of green folding like waves. And then came the second basket. Not for everyone, just for the men in suits near the front. Deacons only. They didn't pass it down the pews. They walked it straight to the pastor's office. Langston noted every move. This wasn't just ties. This was something else. After benediction, the crowd spilled out, buzzing like bees in Sunday best. Langston eased toward the exit, but a hand caught his arm. Firm, warm, familiar. "Brother Marcus," Pastor Ward said, that megawatt smile in place. "Don't rush off. We break bread after service. Family stays close, you hear?" Langston nodded, heart ticking fast. "Yes, sir." "I'd be honored." The pastor leaned in, voice low enough to curl like smoke in Langston's ear. "And Marcus, Sometimes what you give determines what you get. Understand? Langston forced a chuckle, though his pulse spiked hard. Yes, sir, he said again, Bible pressed tight against his chest. But as he followed Ward toward the fellowship hall, one thought hammered in his head. This isn't just about money. This man runs his church like a kingdom, and I just walked into the throne room. The fellowship hall smelled like heaven and temptation fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese baked to a golden crust. Gospel music hummed softly from an old radio in the corner, mingling with laughter and chatter. Long tables groaned under the weight of aluminum pans, and every seat was filled with folks breaking bread like family. Langston grabbed a plate, moving slow, careful not to stand out. His FBI training taught him 2 rules. Blend in and always know your exits. 2 doors up front, 1 side door behind the kitchen. He clocked them without turning his head. Pastor Ward floated through the room like royalty among commoners, touching shoulders, blessing babies, shaking hands with that perfect mix of warmth and authority. Every time his eyes swept over Langston, it felt like a spotlight. Langston took a seat at the far end, next to a wiry man in his 60s wearing a maroon deacon pin. The man grinned, offering his hand. Name's Deacon Russell. You the brother from Atlanta? Langston shook it, easy smile on his face. Yes, sir, Marcus Green. Good folks up there. You working steady? Langston nodded, giving the cover story he'd rehearsed. Self-employed contractor, mostly residential, trying to set roots. Deacon Russell seemed satisfied, turning his attention back to his plate. But Langston noticed the way the man's phone buzzed every few minutes, screen flashing numbers before he tucked it away like a secret. Across the room, Pastor Ward clinked a fork against his glass. The chatter died instantly. Family, he boomed, voice smooth as velvet. What a blessing to break bread together. The Lord says where 2 or 3 are gathered, He's in the midst. And I feel Him here today. Amen, the room thundered back. Langston watched, fascinated. Ward didn't just preach. He commanded. And people obeyed. As the pastor spoke on faith and unity, Langston's eyes tracked movement near the kitchen door. A man slipped in through the side entrance mid-40s, built like a linebacker, wearing a crisp black suit despite the heat. He carried a briefcase. His face stayed expressionless, eyes scanning the room like a hawk before disappearing into the kitchen. Langston's pulse jumped. Briefcase. No handshake, no smile. Business, not fellowship. Ward finished his speech with a flourish, and the crowd erupted in applause. Then, almost casually, the pastor said, Deacons, let's gather in my office in 10. Got some house matters to discuss. Langston chewed slow, brain racing. House matters. That meant money. Maybe more. He pushed back his chair, ready to excuse himself when the pastor's voice cut through the noise. Brother Marcus. Langston froze, smile plastered on like glue. Yes, sir? Ward's eyes were steady, warm but sharp. Why don't you join us? You said you're handy with your hands, right? Might need a strong back to move a few things. Langston swallowed hard, nodding. Of course, Pastor. Anything I can do. Good man? Ward clapped him on the shoulder, that smile never slipping. Stick close. Your family now. As Langston followed the group toward the hallway, his phone buzzed once in his pocket-coded vibration from the Bureau Safe app. One word flashed on the screen. Watch. His instincts were already screaming the same thing. The hallway leading to Pastor Ward's office was cooler, quieter. The noise of laughter and gospel music faded behind Langston like a closing door. Carpet muffled the footsteps of the small Group 5 deacons, the pastor, and now Langston bringing up the rear like an invited stranger at a family table. Ward unlocked the double oak doors with a brass key and pushed them open. The office was bigger than any church office Langston had ever seen. Rich mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with shelves of theology books and framed photos. Ward shaking hands with congressmen, hugging kids at community events, standing beside civil rights murals like a modern-day Moses. A man of influence. A man of power. And then there was the safe. Black steel, taller than Langston's chest, tucked in the corner like a silent sentinel. The man with the briefcase was already inside, waiting. His suit jacket was off now, revealing a pistol holstered under his arm. Langston clocked it instantly, even as the man clicked open the case. Bundles of cash stared back, crisp and tight, enough to buy silence 10 times over. Ward closed the door, the click loud in the hush. "Brothers," he said, voice calm, commanding. "Let's get to it." The deacons gathered near the desk, their laughter from the hall gone now, faces set like men in a boardroom, not a church. Langston stayed back, feigning deference, letting his eyes do the work. The bundles of cash hit the desk in neat stacks. Ward counted them, fingers swift, lips moving without sound. A ritual. Not random, controlled. Deacon Russell cleared his throat. This week's good. Got a few new streams coming through. Atlanticide strong. Ward nodded, not looking up. And our friends down south? Happy, Russell said, long as the river runs clean. Langston kept his expression blank, but his mind sharpened. Streams, river, code words. Definitely laundering. The man with the gun silent till now finally spoke, voice deep and cold. They want assurance, Reverend. No slips, no eyes. Ward looked up then, his gaze cutting to Langston like a blade. For one heartbeat, the room froze. Langston felt every drop of sweat on his spine. Then Ward smiled slow, like honey poured over steel. "This here is Marcus," he said. "Brothers looking to be part of the family. Came to us humble, came to us willing. I see promise in him." Langston lowered his head slightly, letting the mask of gratitude settle over his face. "Just happy to serve, Pastor." Ward's eyes lingered a second longer before he turned back to the desk. Good, 'cause family stays loyal. The counting resumed. The coded talk flowed on, streams, bridges, rivers, while Langston kept mental notes of every word, every face, every slip. But his pulse kicked harder when Ward finally locked the cash away and motioned to the man with the gun. "Take this week's to the riverbank." The man nodded, closing the briefcase with a click that sounded like a gunshot. He brushed past Langston, and for the first time, Langston caught the scent of him expensive cologne masking the sharp edge of gun oil. Ward clapped his hands once, breaking the tension. "All right, brothers. Prayer before we part." They circled up, heads bowed. Langston joined, hands clasped tight, listening as Ward's deep voice rolled into prayer words of blessing, faith, unity. And yet every syllable felt like a chain tightening around his throat. "Amen," they murmured in unison, and as Langston raised his head, Ward's eyes were on him again. Warm, deadly. "Brother Marcus," he said softly, "stay a minute. We need to talk." The others filed out. The door clicked shut. Now it was just the pastor and the undercover agent, face to face, in a room that suddenly felt too small. Ward leaned against his desk, smile curling like smoke. "You ever heard the saying, son? Every sheep ain't in the fold for the same reason?" Langston held his gaze, voice steady though his heart thudded in his ears. "Yes, sir. I've heard that." "Good." Ward's smile widened, but his eyes didn't. "Then you understand why I need to know. Are you here to follow? Or are you here to watch?" The silence in Pastor Ward's office stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Langston held his posture comb on the outside, pulse hammering on the inside. He'd been in interrogation rooms, face to face with killers who'd slit throats for less. But something about Elijah Ward was different. The man didn't need a gun to make you sweat. His presence was a weapon. Langston swallowed slow. Buying time. I'm here to serve, Pastor. Whatever the church needs. Ward tilted his head, studying him like a jeweler appraising a stone. Good answer. But talk is cheap, son. Anybody can say, I'm loyal. Loyalty, real loyalty, is proven. Langston forced a nod. I understand. Do you? Ward moved closer, his cologne rich and dark, like sandalwood in smoke. I don't invite just anyone behind these doors, Marcus. You're in the room now. That means eyes are on you, mine, theirs. And trust me, if you're not who you say you are, those eyes will close on you fast. Langston held his ground, jaw tight. What do you need me to do? Ward smiled, then wide, warm, dangerous. Come with me. They left through a side door that spilled into a dim hallway, walls humming with the drone of an old AC unit. Ward walked slow, like a man in no hurry to show his hand. Langston followed, scanning details. Fire exits, security cameras, none he could see, and the faint thump of bass from somewhere below. A basement? Ward pushed open a steel door at the end of the hall. Stairs spiraled down into shadow. The air grew cooler, damp with the scent of concrete and motor oil. Langston's instincts screamed, but he kept moving, step for step behind the pastor. The basement opened into a cavernous garage lit by flickering fluorescent tubes. Parked inside, 2 SUVs, black as midnight, windows tinted darker than sign. Beside them, metal racks stacked with crates, not hymnals or communion wine. Langston caught the stenciled lettering on one. Fertilizer. But the weight of the boxes told another story. Guns? Drugs? Cash? Maybe all three. Ward stopped near the first SUV, turning to face him. You see, Marcus, this ain't just about preaching on Sundays. Ministry takes money, and money takes work. Langston gave a slow nod, masking the churn in his gut. I get that. Good. Ward snapped his fingers. From the shadows, the man with the briefcase emerged, the same one from the office, pistol still snug under his arm. He tossed a small duffel onto the hood of the SUV. It landed with a metallic clink. Tonight, Ward said, voice dropping like a gavel, that bag goes to the address inside. No questions. You drop it, you leave. And you don't peek, Marcus. Sheep that peek end up slaughtered. You feel me? Langston stared at the duffel. His mind raced. This was it, the first real line in the sand. Deliver the bag and keep his cover, or refuse and burn the op. His handler's warning flashed in his head. Do not transport contraband. Do not commit a felony. But what choice did he have? One wrong move here, and he'd be the one zipped in a body bag. He forced a steady breath. I feel you, Pastor. Ward's smile spread slow, like a knife sliding out of its sheath. That's what I like to hear. The man with the gun shoved the keys into Langston's hand. Cars gassed up. You got 30 minutes. Langston gripped the keys, the metal biting his palm. Every cell in his body screamed to call it in, to abort, but the look in Ward's eyes told him this was more than a test. This was initiation. As he slid behind the wheel of the SUV, the duffel riding shotgun like silent judgment, Langston whispered under his breath, God, if you're still listening, keep me alive tonight. The engine roared, drowning the echo of Ward's parting words. Welcome to the family, son. The black SUV purred like a predator as Langston steered it onto a narrow back road, trees crowding both sides like silent witnesses. The duffel sat on the passenger seat, zipper gleaming under the dash light. Whatever was inside clinked once when he hit a bumped metallic heavy. Guns, his gut whispered, or cash. Maybe both. He checked the address on the folded slip. Eagle's Nest, Route 64, midnight sharp. No name, no phone number, just that. Langston flicked the headlights to low and pressed harder on the gas. His mind raced through bureau protocol. Do not transport illegal goods. Do not compromise integrity of evidence. But protocol didn't cover this being alone in enemy territory, with a loaded duffel and a cover to protect. His earpiece buzzed a soft vibration that traveled down his jawbone. Safe line. He tapped it twice, activating the mic. "This is Alpha 3, he whispered. "I'm in motion. Target gave me a package for delivery. Requesting." A sharp hiss of static cut him off. Then silence. Langston's chest tightened. Either the signal was jammed, or the cell tower coverage out here was garbage. Either way, he was on his own. The road curved into pitch-black woods. No houses. No lights. Just the sound of tires crunching gravel and the distant rasp of cicadas. He checked the rear view again and froze. Headlights. Far back, maybe a quarter mile, but steady. Low, creeping. Matching his speed. Langston's pulse spiked. He downshifted, watching. The lights held their distance. Not passing, not falling back. Shadow car. Tail. He eased the SUV into a shallow curve and made his move kill the lights, brake hard, and glide into a cut of trees just wide enough to swallow the vehicle. The engine hummed low as he killed it, darkness folding around him like a shroud. The other car swept past moments later, slow enough to sting his nerves. A matte black sedan, tinted windows, no plates he could catch. Langston stayed still, breath locked, watching the glow fade into the night. When he finally rolled back onto the road, his hands were tight on the wheel. Whoever that was, they weren't random. Minutes later, an old roadhouse sign appeared ahead, flickering neon like a heartbeat. Eagle's Nest Bar and Grill. A gravel lot sprawled beside it, half filled with trucks and beat-up cars. A faint glow of light bled through dirty windows. Country blues leaked from inside, twangy and low. Langston parked near the edge, engine idling. Every instinct screamed to abort. Call backup, but he had no signal. And Ward's words echoed in his head. Family stays loyal. He grabbed the duffel and stepped out. The Georgia night wrapped around him thick and humid. His boots crunched gravel as he walked to the bar's side entrance, the one marked with peeling paint and no windows. He knocked twice, then once, like the note instructed. The door cracked open, revealing a man with a face like broken stone scarred, eyes flat. He scanned Langston from boots to brow before swinging the door wider. Inside, the air reeked of whiskey and sweat. A single bulb hung low, throwing shadows long and mean. Two men sat at a scarred table, counting stacks of cash. Another leaned against the wall, cradling a shotgun like a lover. "Bag," the scar-faced man grunted. Langston handed it over, his jaw set, his mind cataloging every face, every detail, tattoos, scars, accents. He needed all of it for his report, if he lived to file one. Scarface unzipped the bag just enough for Langston to catch a glimpse. Clock pistols. Clean gleaming. At least 6. Maybe more. "Looks good," the man said. Then his eyes flicked up, sharp as razors. "Pastor said you were solid. Guess we'll see." Before Langston could respond, the man nodded to the guy with the shotgun. The barrel swung up, aimed square at Langston's chest. "Ride with us," Scarface said. "Got one more stop." Langston felt the weight of the room tilt, like a floor giving way beneath him. He forced a calm breath, voice even. "Where to?" Scarface smiled thin, cold. "Pastor'll tell you when you get there." The shotgun never wavered as they herded him toward the back door, the night yawning wide and black beyond it. The night pressed in like a coffin lid as Langston slid into the back seat of the matte black sedan. The shotgun guy climbed in beside him, metal cold against his ribs, while Scarface took the driver's seat. Another man sat up front, silent, face hidden under a baseball cap. The car smelled of cigarettes, gun oil, and something faintly sweet like the aftermath of spilled liquor. Langston's pulse thudded steady, the kind of beat he'd trained to control, but sweat still crawled down his spine. The engine growled to life, tires crunching gravel as they rolled out of the Eagle's Nest lot and back onto the blacktop. No one spoke for miles. The Georgia woods swallowed them whole, trees arching like ribs overhead, moonlight slicing through in broken pieces. Langston kept his eyes forward, mind running calculations. He needed to stay in character Marcus Green, the humble contractor, loyal to the fold, but every second in that car pulled him deeper into a whole bureau protocol couldn't dig him out of. Finally, Scarface broke the silence, voice flat and sharp. "You ever put in real work, Marcus?" Langston tilted his head, buying time. "Depends what you mean by real." Scarface chuckled a sound like gravel, grinding under boots. "You'll see." The man beside him shifted, the shotgun's barrel nudging Langston's ribs like a warning. His fingers itched for the Glock strapped under his jacket, but pulling it now would turn the car into a coffin before the first shot fired. They drove another 10 minutes before the sedan slowed, tires hissing on wet pavement. Ahead, a small house squatted in the dark, paint peeling, porch light dead. One pickup truck sat in the dirt yard. The only sound was the hum of cicadas and the distant bark of a dog. Scarface killed the engine and turned in his seat, eyes drilling into Langston. "Pastor wants this handled clean. Quick. You follow, you live. You freeze, you die. Simple." Langston's gut nodded. "Handled how?" The front seat man finally spoke, voice low and mean. Fool in there owes big. He had his chances. "Tonight, we collect or we send a message." The shotgun man grinned, teeth flashing in the dim. "You the message, Marcus." Langston's heart thudded hard enough to crack ribs. A collection job, could be cash, could be blood. And if they expected him to pull the trigger? That wasn't just blowing his cover, that was murder. Scarface shoved the duffel toward him. Glocks loaded, safety off. "Let's go." Langston gripped the bag, every muscle coiled. His mind screamed two things at once. Don't compromise the mission. Don't kill a man. Somewhere in that chaos, training kicked in. De-escalate. Stall. Create options. He stepped out into the night, gravel crunching under boots. The air smelled of pine and rain-soaked dirt. The house loomed ahead, its windows black, door yawning like a mouth, waiting to swallow him whole. The three men moved in formation, Scarface leading, Langston in the middle, shotgun guy behind like a shadow. They hit the porch, wood groaning under their weight. Scarface rapped twice on the door. No answer. He turned to Langston, voice a whisper sharp enough to cut. "Knock again. This time, make it count." Langston rapped hard, his sound echoing like a drumbeat in the hollow night. From inside came movement, the scrape of chair legs, the squeak of a hinge. The door cracked open, revealing a man in a stained undershirt, eyes wide, face slack with fear. Scarface slammed the door wide, shoving inside. Langston followed, shotgun at his back. The house reeked of stale beer and sweat. A single bulb flickered overhead, throwing jittery shadows across peeling wallpaper. The man backed up, hands raised. "Look, I got some of it. Just give me a week." Scarface's fist cut the words off, snapping the man's head sideways. He crumpled to the floor, groaning. "Week's up," Scarface growled. He turned to Langston, eyes glinting like shards of glass. "Do it." Langston froze. "Do what?" Scarface slid the Glock from the duffel and pressed it into Langston's hand. Cold steel, heavy as judgment. "Make him remember," Scarface said. "Pastor wants him breathing but limping." Langston's heart slammed. "Shoot him. Not kill, just hurt." But even pulling that trigger crossed a line the Bureau couldn't scrub clean. Scarface leaned in, voice soft and deadly. Family stays loyal, Marcus. Show me your family. The man on the floor whimpered, clutching his face. Blood dripped between his fingers, pooling dark on the warped floorboards. His eyes found Langston's, wide, pleading. Langston tightened his grip on the gun. Sweat stung his eyes. Options spun like cards in a dealer's hand, and everyone looked bad. Outside, a dog barked again, closer this time. Then headlights swept across the window brief, ghostly before vanishing. Someone else was here. Langston's finger hovered over the trigger, sweat trickling down his temple like a countdown. The Glock felt heavier now, an anchor chained to his conscience. The man on the floor whimpered again, curling tighter, his voice breaking like brittle glass. Please, please, I got a kid. Scarface's voice cut sharp through the air. Clock's ticking, Marcus. Pastor said no hesitation. The shotgun barrel nudged Langston's ribs, a reminder that this wasn't a choice. It was a death sentence, one way or another. Langston inhaled slow, centering himself. Training whispered in his ear, control the scene, control the weapon. He dropped to one knee beside the man, gun angled down. What's your name? He murmured, voice low, almost drowned by the hum of the single flickering bulb. The man blinked, trembling. Darius. Langston gritted his teeth. He needed a way to make this look good without breaking his soul or blowing his cover. Then the sound hit, tires crunching gravel outside. A car engine idled low, not the sedan they hadn't called back up. Whoever it was, they weren't expected. Scarface's jaw tightened. He glanced at the shotgun man, then back at Langston. Handle it, now. Langston pressed the Glock against the floor, tilting it just enough so the barrel kissed the boards an inch from Darius's leg. He squeezed the trigger. Crack. The gunshot shattered the silence, the floor splintering under the blast. Darius screamed like he'd been gutted, clutching his thigh, blood smearing where wood shards had sliced skin. Perfect illusion. A flesh wound without pulling the trigger on humanity. Langston stood, smoke curling from the muzzle, eyes hard. Satisfied? Scarface stared at him for a beat, then grinned slow. Maybe you ain't soft after all. The shotgun man laughed, low and ugly. Darius whimpered on the floor, clutching his leg like it was half gone. Before anyone could speak again, headlights swept the window in a slow arc. A car crept past same black sedan from earlier? No. Smaller, newer, tinted windows, no plates. It crawled down the dirt lane, then stopped. Engine running. Waiting. Scarface cursed under his breath. Move him to the back, he barked at Shotgun Man. Marcus, you're with me. Langston's gut nodded. What's out there? Scarface's eyes were ice. Could be cops, could be feds, could be somebody stupid. Either way, we end it fast. He yanked the door open, Glock in hand, and slipped into the shadows outside. Langston followed, scanning the tree line, ears sharp for movement. The air was thick with pine and the metallic tong of gunpowder. The sedan's headlights dimmed. Engine still running. The driver didn't move, didn't honk. Just waited like a predator in the dark. Scarface crouched low, whispering, On my word, we light 'em up. Langston's mind raced. If it was law enforcement, blood would spill, and his entire op would burn. If it wasn't hell, either way, this was about to go loud. Then the driver's door cracked open. A sliver of light spilled on gravel. A man stepped out broad-shouldered, dressed sharp, no badge in sight. He raised both hands slowly, voice carrying through the night. Pastor sent me. He said the flock's too loud tonight. Scarface stiffened. His grip on the Glock tightened. That ain't the code, he hissed. Langston's stomach dropped. This wasn't backup. This was something else. The man smiled faint in the glow of the headlights. You boys might want to lower them guns. Things about to change. Before Scarface could answer, the trees behind them rustled fast, deliberate. Langston spun toward the sound just as a figure in all black stepped out of the dark, a long rifle slung low. The voice was calm, cold. Drop the bags. And your guns. Now. The night shattered into fragments of tension. 1 second, it was Scarface and the shotgun guy flanking Langston in a dusty Georgia yard. The next, a shadow melted from the tree line, rifle gleaming under the silver slice of moon. Whoever this was, they didn't flinch, didn't shake. Their voice came like ice on steel. Guns down, now. Scarface pivoted, weapon raised in a heartbeat, but the rifleman was faster. The click of a safety coming off split the night, sharp and final. I said down. Langston shifted just enough to gauge the angle's rifle aimed dead at Scarface. Shotgun guy frozen mid-turn. That meant him. 3 men in the open, 1 in the dark with range and advantage. And Langston's heart pounded with a truth worse than the muzzle flash he expected next. He didn't know who this was. Not cartel muscle, not local hustlers. Too disciplined, too quiet. Scarface spat in the dirt, eyes blazing. You got a death wish, fool? Do you even know whose ground you standing on? The rifleman didn't blink. Pastor ain't in charge tonight. Drop it. The air crackled. Sweat trickled down Langston's spine. He forced himself to breathe steady. Glock angled low, mind-spinning plays like a quarterback under blitz. He had 3 goals: stay alive, keep the op intact, and avoid killing anyone unless the floor dropped out. He raised his free hand slightly, voice calm, measured. Let's all take a breath. Ain't no need to turn this into a graveyard. The rifle swung his way for half a heartbeat, enough for Langston to catch a glimpse under the hood. Not local. Smooth, dark skin, eyes sharp, no fear in them. A pro. Scarface hissed through his teeth. Marcus, shut your damn mouth. This ain't your call. But Langston kept talking, stepping just a hair forward, palms visible. If Pastor sent him, that means there's a mix-up. We air this out, cops gonna hear. Ain't nobody walking away clean then. The rifleman's jaw flexed. You ain't wrong. His voice softened just a notch. Put yours down first. Scarface barked a laugh, harsh and hollow. Hell no. Before he finished, a shot cracked the air like lightning. A puff of dirt erupted 2 inches from Scarface's boot. The rifleman didn't move, didn't breathe different. Just said, next one don't miss. Silence. Even the cicadas seemed to hush. Scarface cursed low, eyes darting to Langston. A silent question. What now? Langston's pulse hammered, but his mind was ice. He loosened his grip on the Glock, let it dip slow, then knelt and set it on the ground. Every motion deliberate, like defusing a bomb. See? He said softly. Ain't gotta end bloody. The rifleman tilted his head toward Scarface. Your turn. Scarface's nostrils flared, pride and survival warring in his eyes. Then, with a snarl, he tossed the Glock into the dirt. Shotgun guy followed suit, teeth clenched, barrel thudding against gravel. The rifleman nodded once. Good. Now step back. They did, boots scraping slow. Langston stayed calm, heart ticking like a clock wired to dynamite. He studied the man with the rifle, searching for a telepatch, a mark, anything to name his allegiance. Nothing. Just controlled danger wrapped in silence. Then the figure spoke again, eyes locking on Langston. You, in the car, now. Scarface stiffened. The hell for? The rifleman's voice was ice. Pastor's orders. And you ain't part of the delivery anymore. Langston's gut clenched hard. This was no random jack move. This was a power play, and somehow he was the pawn being moved. Scarface took a step forward, rage twitching under his skin. Man, you. Another shot cracked the air. This one kissed the brim of his cap clean off. Scarface froze, breath sawing through his teeth. "Next one goes between your eyes," the rifleman said, steady as scripture. "Move." Scarface moved, backward, slow, hands raised. His glare burned holes in Langston as he retreated into the dark with shotgun guy trailing close. The rifleman jerked his chin toward the sedan, parked at the edge of the trees. "Let's ride." Langston's every nerve screamed protest, but his cover chained his tongue. He strode toward the car, sliding inside as the rifleman rounded the hood and slid into the driver's seat. The engine purred, headlights carving through the dark as they pulled away from the house. Langston stared out the window, jaw tight, watching the night bleed by. Finally, he spoke, voice low. "You gonna tell me who the hell you are?" The rifleman's grin flashed in the dark like a blade. "You'll find out, Marcus. But for now, you better pray you on the right side of the pulpit." The sedan cut through the Georgia backroads like a black knife, headlights slicing narrow beams across the dark. Inside, the air hummed with engine noise and unspoken questions. Langston sat rigid in the passenger seat, Glock still holstered under his jacket, though it might as well have been a toy against the man driving. The rifleman's hands rested easy on the wheel calm, steady. No twitch, no wasted movement. Langston studied him in the dim glow of the dash. Shaved head, skin smooth, jaw tight. Military precision in the way he handled the car. Definitely not a street hustler. Whoever he was, he'd seen war. Langston broke the silence first. "You gonna tell me where we're going, or I'm supposed to just pray on it?" The driver chuckled low, a dry rasp of sound. "Funny. Pastor said you had mouth. He ain't wrong." Langston kept his face neutral, though the name dropped like a stone in his gut. Pastor sent him. That killed any thought of playing clueless. Ward was still pulling strings, just from a different hand. "You work for him?" Langston asked carefully. The driver's eyes flicked his way, dark and unreadable. "I work for the Word, same as you." Langston smirked faint, masking the tension grinding his nerves. "Last I checked, the Word didn't roll around with rifles and headshots." That grin flashed again, sharp as a blade. "Sometimes the wolves wear collars, Marcus. And sometimes the sheep need men like me to keep the blood off their wool." Calculated and chilling as hell. The sedan veered off the blacktop onto a gravel lane, winding through pines until a glow broke the dark, a sprawling compound tucked deep in the woods. Low brick buildings arranged around a central courtyard, floodlights washing everything in pale gold. High fences ringed the property, topped with cameras that blinked like watchful eyes. Langston's pulse ticked faster. This wasn't a church annex. This was a fortress. The car rolled through a gate that slid open on hydraulics, guards nodding as they passed. All of them were armed. All of them black men dressed in plain clothes, but moving like soldiers. Langston's mind chewed on the puzzle pieces. Pastor Ward's pulpit power, secret armed compound, and now this man. Whatever this was, it wasn't just laundering. It was an organization tight, disciplined, dangerous, and he was in the belly of it now. The sedan eased to a stop near a squat brick building. The driver killed the engine and turned to Langston, eyes hard. "Out." Langston stepped into the night air, heavy with pine and diesel fumes. Voices drifted from inside the building low, urgent, like prayers whispered through clenched teeth. The rifleman led him through a steel door and down a narrow hall into a room that smelled of sweat and gun oil. Inside were 6 men seated around a table littered with blueprints, cash bundles, and weapons stripped down to parts. A map of Georgia sprawled across the center, dotted with red pins. At the head of the table sat Pastor Elijah Ward. Langston's stomach sank like a stone. The man was immaculate, even here tailored suit, gold cufflinks gleaming under harsh fluorescent light. His eyes lifted slow, locking on Langston with that same deep-water calm that made men confess or drown. "Well," Ward said softly, rising to his feet, "look at you. Thought you might lose your footing out there, Marcus. But you didn't. You stayed loyal." Langston kept his face neutral, though every nerve screamed. "I do what's asked, Pastor." Ward's smile spread, wide and warm like a Sunday sunrise, but his eyes stayed cold as judgment. "Good, because what's coming next? Gonna take more than loyalty. It's gonna take faith." He gestured to the map, his voice rolling like a sermon laced with sin. "George is changing, brothers. And when rivers change, you build new bridges. We got roots to secure, men to move, and enemies to erase." Langston's gut knotted tighter with every word. This wasn't a side hustle. This was a network. And Ward wasn't just a preacher playing gangster. He was an architect building something big, something bloody. Ward's gaze landed on him again, pinning him like a nail. "Marcus, you ready to step into the inner circle?" Langston forced a breath past the weight in his chest. "Yes, Pastor," he said, smooth, steady, lying through his teeth. Ward's smile deepened. "Then tomorrow night you ride with us real work this time. No tests." He leaned in, his voice dropping like a blade. "And Marcus, no more room for sheep. You're a wolf now." Langston lay awake on the thin mattress in his rented room, the hum of an old sea fighting George's relentless heat. His Glock sat on the nightstand, next to the Bible Pastor Ward had pressed into his hands days ago. Two objects that couldn't be more opposite, and yet both felt like weapons tonight. He stared at the ceiling, replaying every detail of the compound, the guards, the cameras, the map with its blood-red pins marking highways like arteries, routes to secure, men to move, enemies to erase. Ward wasn't talking about money laundering anymore. This was bigger. A full-blown syndicate under the guise of gospel. Langston tapped his earpiece, praying the signal held. Static fizzled, then a voice broke through his handler, Agent Cole. "Alpha 3, report." Langston kept his voice low, controlled. "Operations deeper than intel suggested. Pastor's running a paramilitary network. Weapons confirmed. Routes across state lines. Possibly trafficking." "Jesus," Cole muttered. "Langston, you need extraction." "No," Langston hissed. "If I bail now, ops blown. I've got one shot to see the full picture. Tomorrow night, I'm riding with him." "Negative," Cole snapped. "We pull you before you end up in a ditch." Langston's jaw clenched. "If I pull now, we got nothing but whispers. Give me 24 hours. One ride, then you bring the storm." Silence crackled on the line. Finally, "Fine, but your tracker stays hot. You don't check in by dawn. We roll in heavy." "Copy," Langston said, and killed the line. He exhaled slow, feeling the weight of what was coming. Tomorrow, he'd step into the lion's den wearing sheep's skin that was already starting to tear. The next night draped the back roads in velvet dark when the convoy rolled out 3 black SUVs, engines purring low, headlights dimmed. Langston rode shotgun in the lead car, Pastor Ward behind him like a king on his throne, voice smooth as silk in the dim. "You ever heard the story of Gideon, Marcus?" Ward asked, his tone casual, like they were chatting over coffee. Langston kept his eyes forward, hands resting loose on his knees. "Yes, sir. Army cut down from thousands to 300. Ward smiled, his reflection glinting in the rear view like a serpent in silk. "Exactly. God don't need numbers. He needs men willing to drink from the river without fear. Men who ain't afraid to get their hands dirty." Langston nodded, though his stomach coiled. "I understand." "Good," Ward said softly, "because tonight we see who's Gideon and who's dead weight." The convoy turned off the asphalt onto a dirt track that wound through pine and shadow. After 10 minutes, lights bloomed ahead warehouse floodlamps, cutting through the dark. A hulking structure squatted at the edge of a clearing, semi-trucks lined up like sentinels. Crates were stacked in neat rows, guarded by men with rifles slung casual but ready. Langston's breath locked in his throat. Distribution hub. This wasn't just local. It was interstate. Maybe international. The SUVs parked in formation. Ward stepped out, smoothing his suit like he was about to deliver a sermon, not orchestrate a crime. His inner circle flanked him, Scarface glaring daggers, the rifleman silent and watchful. Langston followed, every sense screaming red. Ward swept an arm toward the warehouse. Take it in, brothers. This is the river, and rivers feed nations. Inside, forklifts hummed, moving crates stamped with false labels, fertilizer, auto parts, but Langston caught glimpses through slats, steel glinting under plastic wrap. Assault rifles, ammunition, military-grade hardware. Men moved like clockwork, some loading, others checking manifests. Langston memorized faces, positions, exits, even as his pulse hammered. He needed details, proof, and a way out. Ward's hand landed on his shoulder, heavy and warm. "Marcus," he said softly, steering him toward the back. "Tonight, I'm trusting you with more than errands. There's a man upstairs decided he don't want to be part of the fold anymore. That's poison, son. Can't let it spread." Langston froze. "What do you want me to do?" Ward's smile was pure Sunday morning. His words were not. "Show him wolves don't forgive sheep that stray." Scarface grinned, sliding the pistol into Langston's hand. Cold metal. Loaded. "Time to prove you ain't just talk." Langston's heart slammed against his ribs. Every exit route vanished like smoke. Upstairs was a man about to die, and the only thing standing between him and a bullet was Langston's ability to outthink a predator while standing in its den. Ward's voice dropped to a whisper, smooth and lethal. "This is the last test, Marcus. After tonight, there's no going back." Langston stared at the pistol, the weight of the badge hidden under his shirt burning like a brand. One wrong move, and it's over. One wrong move, and someone dies. The upstairs room was small, lit by a single bulb that swung gently like a pendulum over cracked plaster walls. A man sat bound to a chair in his center mid-40s, sweat slick on his brow, eyes bloodshot from hours of fear. His lip was split, shirt torn. Langston's stomach knotted as he stepped in, Scarface closing the door behind him with a thud that felt like a prison gate. The pistol in Langston's hand weighed more than steel. It felt like sin, like failure waiting to happen. Scarface leaned against the wall, arms crossed, smirk curling his lips. "Pastor said make it quick, no mess." Langston swallowed, staring at the man in the chair. His name, according to whispers downstairs, was Leonard Tate, a trucker who'd ferried shipments for Ward's network for years. Until he didn't. Until he started talking about leaving. "Please," Leonard rasped, eyes locking on Langston's. "I got kids, man. I just wanted out. That's all." Langston's grip tightened on the Glock. His badge felt like it was burning a hole through his chest. This was the line, the point of no return. Pull the trigger and bury the case with his soul. Refuse and die here tonight. Scarface's voice was a low growl. "Clock's ticking, Marcus. Wolves don't hesitate." Langston forced a slow breath, brain firing through every scenario like gunfire. Stall, buy time, find an angle. He crouched in front of Leonard, masking the move as intimidation. His voice dropped to a whisper meant for one man only. "Do exactly what I say if you want to see tomorrow." Leonard's eyes flared with a flicker of hope. Langston rose, spinning toward Scarface with the pistol half raised. "You ever wonder why Pastor don't do his own dirty work?" he asked, voice cool as ice. Scarface sneered. "You questioning the man of God?" "No," Langston said softly. "I'm questioning you." Scarface's smirk faltered just long enough. Langston moved. The barrel snapped sideways, cracking Scarface across the jaw. Bone crunched, and the man crumpled with a grunt. Before the shotgun-toting guard outside could react, Langston slammed the door and locked it, heart pounding like war drums. Scarface groaned, blood pooling under his cheek. Langston crouched over Leonard, ripping the rope loose with one hand while yanking his earpiece cord with the other. The signal crackled alive now. He whispered fast. Alpha 3 to command target confirmed. Armed compound, multiple hostiles. Warehouse loaded with military-grade weapons. Rolling emergency send the cavalry now. A burst of static, then Cole's voice. Copy, Alpha 3. Strike team en route. Hold your ground. Hold your ground. Easier said than done when boots thundered outside and Scarface started to stir. Langston shoved the Glock into Leonard's hands. Stay behind me. Move when I move. The door exploded inward a second later, splinters flying as shotgun man barreled through. Langston fired low kneecap. The man howled, collapsing in a spray of blood. Langston kicked the shotgun away and bolted down the hall, Leonard stumbling behind him. Shouts erupted below, boots pounding, steel clashing. Langston tore down the stairs 2 at a time, mind locked on the exit. But when they hit the warehouse floor, a wall of men waited, guns raised, faces hard. And at the center stood Pastor Elijah Ward, calm, perfect, untouched by chaos. His voice boomed through the cavernous space like thunder from the pulpit. Brother Marcus, he said, smooth as silk. Or should I call you Agent Price? Langston froze, blood icing in his veins. Around him, rifles leveled. The room stank of diesel and death. Ward stepped forward, eyes glowing with a terrible kind of certainty. You think I didn't know? You think the Lord don't reveal wolves in sheep's clothing? He spread his arms, a twisted parody of blessing. I let you in because I wanted you here, so you could see what faith looks like when it's tested by fire. Langston's jaw clenched. Faith? This ain't faith. It's blood and bullets. You're hiding behind Scripture while you poison your own people. Ward's smile was cold as stone. And you're hiding behind a badge that ain't saved a single soul in these streets. The standoff stretched seconds, swelling like years. Then, from outside, the night erupted. Sirens, shouts, the roar of engines. Flashbangs shattered the air with blinding light and thunderclaps. FBI strike teams poured in from every angle, black-clad and barking orders. Gunfire cracked like a storm. Men dropped. Crates splintered. Ward didn't flinch, didn't run. He raised his hands slow, eyes never leaving Langston's. Even lions bow when the Lord says kneel, he murmured, almost tender. Agents swarmed, dragging Ward to the ground, snapping cuffs on wrists still slick with power. Scarface was face down, bleeding. Leonard clung to a wall, shaking. Langston stood in the chaos, chest heaving, ears ringing. He watched as Ward was hauled past, smiling like a man who'd won something no one else could see. You'll come back, Ward called over the din, voice calm as prayer. You'll see. Sheep or wolf you still belong to the flock. Then he was gone, swallowed by flashing lights and armored vans. Langston stepped outside into the cool night, the compound blazing behind him. Helicopters thundered overhead, searchlights cutting the dark like Judgment Day. Cole appeared at his shoulder, face tight. Hell of a baptism, Price. Langston let out a laugh, rough, bitter, hollow. He looked down at his hands, still trembling, and at the Bible tucked under his arm like a joke the universe refused to stop telling. Yeah, he muttered, eyes lifting to the bruised horizon. Amen to that. Not every story ends with justice. Some just stop where the paperwork does. But if you listened closely, this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what we ignore. the assumptions we let slide, the voices we tune out because they don't come in the right tone. Somewhere, someone's living with the fallout of this story, not as a headline, but as their everyday. So if this story stayed with you, don't let it fade. Shine it forward. Ask more. Doubt what's too quiet. Because what we choose to see, or not see, decides what happens next. Like, comment, share, not for clicks, but for clarity. Because awareness is how silence breaks, and how truth finds daylight.